Hey, Kenny. I'm picking up some kind of a data transmission or something. Looks like a top secret military transmission or code. I don't know, man.
Huh. Well, I mean, I guess that makes sense since our ship, used to belong to the USMC, I suppose. What does it say?
I don't know. It's encrypted. It's like some kind of weird symbols, like some kind of a cipher. Hey, Cooler Bot, do you think you could read this?
Weird question.
Analyzing. I will continue to send data logs from the USS Marion. I don't know if they're still being received, but if they are and you are reading this, do not come for us. We are where we belong.
The Marion. Neal, that sounds kind of familiar.
Yeah, it sure does.
Well, anyway, whoever said that transmission clearly doesn't want or need our help, thank God.
Yeah. Hey, you want to go play Sega Bass Fishing on the Dreamcast?
Only if you have the fishing rod controller.
Of course I do. Welcome to Crew Expendable. I am Pre-Core Directive Synth Operating System Solitaire Hallstrom.
And I am Soul Survivor Rohrbacher.
Damn. I don't know if mine worked that well. I'm implying that like I'm a version of Solitaire on a synth operating system like Windows.
I mean, I got it, and I suppose that's all that matters.
Okay. And we're just a couple of combat synths shooting our way through the alien universe. I don't know. That one's not great.
I mean, to be fair, there's only one combat synth in this comic, but I'll let it slide. It's fine.
There's a panel with some other ones in it. Okay, here. And we are just a bunch of corrupted dudes in suits sending organisms into the alien universe.
I mean, they're both great. I love them both.
They're both staying in. This is a no edit episode, except for whatever I do to that intro. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because Kenny, we're on a tight deadline with this one because somebody named Synth Operating System Hallstrom has been dealing with a sinus infection and couldn't record.
And as I've mentioned on the show before, I'm cool with it. It's fine. We can take as long as we need to get these episodes out. I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, but I don't want the fans, the listeners. I didn't use the word fans. That doesn't feel right to say. I don't want the listeners being like, Jesus, this guy's always sick. I'm not always sick. I've been sick with this one thing for too long and had to get some hardcore antibiotics to get rid of it. But I'm pretty sure it's gone.
Yeah, you're going on record right now, heading it off at the pass. You're cutting off all possibility of somebody saying something about it. You're like, that's right. This is the deal.
All I worry constantly about the people being like, what is up with this guy? Right. Just, I live in fear of negative YouTube comments. I don't really, honestly. But that doesn't mean you should leave negative YouTube comments.
In fact, you should leave positive ones, and you should also subscribe to us at our YouTube page.
YouTube.com/@crewexpendable. You should definitely subscribe because, Kenny, we got a trailer for something today, day of this recording, which I think might be the day of the release also. We got
we sure the heck did, Neal. Turns out they're releasing a Xenomorph and Ripley as playable characters in Dead by Daylight.
Damn straight. Kenny, have you played Dead by Daylight at all?
I have not.
But you own the game.
I do. I got it for free 1 month on PS Plus.
Nice. I have access to the game for free via Game Pass, and I have played the tutorials.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I want to play the game. I just haven't yet. And let's be real, I've been playing a lot of Evil Dead, and that's kind of been curing my asymmetrical horror themed game cravings, even though it's a different style of gameplay. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But, yeah, I'm about to put some reps into Dead by Daylight and get ready to play this Xenomorph chapter, which, you know, we'll have to spend money on, but that's fine.
It's fine.
We got some friends who play this game also, right? Mm-hmm. So what I'm trying to do is put together... Now, it will be, if not August 29th when the Xenomorph DLC releases, it will be soon after August 29th. I don't want to call my shot that specifically because life and sinus infections happen, right?
They sure do.
But we're going to try to put together a live stream of the Dead by Daylight Alien chapter with some of our friends, stream it over on our YouTube channel, probably stream it on some Twitch channels too. Some of our friends run. Maybe I'll double stream and also stream it on my Twitch channel. But
imagine I'm putting in the emoji right now of the guy's head exploding. Whoa,
kaboom.
Double screaming.
Yeah, we're just be streaming all over the place. We're going to be crossing streams.
Uh-oh.
You know.
I think they say that's bad,
well,
don't they?
We'll find out on or shortly after August 29th.
On our YouTube page.
That's right. So go subscribe, youtube.com/@crewexpendable. Another interesting announcement. This is related to our Thaw episodes, right? Mm-hmm. Remember how I kept saying Comixology was listing the series as 6 issues, but everything else says the Thaw storyline is 5 issues, including each issue of Thaw has said that?
Sure has.
Turns out that 6th issue is an annual. There will be a second a second Alien annual coming out in the year of our Lord 2023. Nice. With the same team as the Thaw, or the same writer at least.
Yeah.
Whose name escapes me right now, embarrassing so, because I believe
that's Declan Shalvey.
Declan Shalvey, that's right.
Yeah.
And yeah, the solicitation is out there, right? We are not a alien news podcast, even though I'm talking about 2 upcoming alien releases, right?
Yeah, it's fine.
We're not going to spoil that here because, again, we are going to cover that on the show, and we are probably going to read it live. And annuals are usually longer than standard issues, so that'll be a fun one. But
oh yeah,
but there you go. I think I actually posited on the last Thaw episode that maybe the 6th issue was going to be an annual of some sorts. And that might have been announced before I said that, but I didn't find out about the annual until after that. So I feel like a genius.
I mean, I definitely can vouch for the fact that I found out there was going to be an annual because you told me that.
Yeah, and
after you found that out. So
you know, we're not an alien news podcast, right? I don't really have my finger on the pulse of these things. I think that might be the first time I alerted you to something alien related before you alerted me to it. Typically, you're the one in the know, right?
Yeah, probably. So, I mean, and I don't even really try that hard. I generally find this stuff out because some other Discord server that I'm in, someone else will post about it and I'll go, oh shit, I got to go send this to Neal.
Yes. And then you do. And then I find out about it too. I will say, if you are interested in keeping up on alien news, I recommend avpgalaxy.net. They are not a sponsor. We have no affiliation with them, but yeah, that's a good site. It's a good site to get your alien news from.
Yeah, one look at my bank account, and I can promise you they are not paying us to say this.
They also do a podcast over there, the AVP Galaxy podcast. Check it out. I believe it's monthly. Yeah, it's a good one. Anyway, what are we here to talk about today, Kenny, on our show, Crew Expendable?
Well,
a journey through the ever-expanding alien universe hosted by 2 Xenodorks.
Since we just spent so much time talking about the new Alien Annual 2023 coming up, I suppose that's a good reason for me to mention that today we're talking about the Alien Annual 2022.
Damn straight we
printed
are.
By Marvel Comics. I think it came out early 2022.
I'm not sure.
but I don't remember for sure.
I could look it up, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, that's right. I'm not going to either.
Actually, I think I have a tab open on it,
But yeah, we're talking about Alien Annual #1, which was released by Marvel Comics sometime during 2022.
It is July 20th, 2022.
Okay, so it wasn't quite the beginning, but it was like just over a year ago.
Kind of right smack in the middle. Well, no, that would be June, right?
And yes, it would. And it is done by the same creative team as the people that was making the comic at the time, which are not the people that are currently making it now.
Well, it is written by Philip Kennedy Johnson, with art by Salvador LaRocca, who did the art for Bloodlines, but did not do the art for Revival. And I believe Revival was out at this point. I believe this came out after Revival. I'm not positive, and I'm not looking it up.
I don't remember for sure either way.
Sure. Colors by Guru EFX and letters by Clayton Cowles. With a cover by Salvador LaRocca and Guru EFX. As always, shout out to Jay Bowen, designer on these books. So this is a story that it was published after Bloodlines, right? Bloodlines being the first Marvel arc, but takes place before it, or at least takes place before the bulk of Bloodlines. Because does Bloodlines have actual flashbacks, or does it just have like, I had this dream about something that happened? I don't remember.
There are actual flashbacks, and since we haven't covered Bloodlines yet, and actually as a side note, it's going to be one of the next couple episodes, so We're getting to it soon. Wink, wink, wink. But in Bloodlines, there are certain like plot points that are part of the storyline of that comic that that depict the main character having flashbacks, and those flashbacks take place before this comic.
Right.
But this comic takes place before the quote unquote present of Bloodlines itself.
Sure. So if you were reading these as they were released, you'd have more information about our main character, Gabriel Cruz, than this issue gives you. But we're going to ignore all of that and just take this issue on its own.
Yep,
and not
because
reference
Gabriel Cruz is also the main character of Bloodlines. So.
Chief Cruz, yes.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be really digging into the events of his life, I guess, when we cover Bloodlines, which I'm going to be real. I'm a little excited about, because I know people aren't crazy about that story. I know I wasn't super crazy about it the first time I read it, but I do think it has some interesting ideas in it, right? And I've forgotten most of it, but I remember certain parts of it, and I'm really interested to reevaluate it with the added context of like Icarus, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm just going to be upfront. Reading this annual, I liked it. I think this annual is a pretty good one-off story. If a little familiar in certain aspects.
There's one thing in particular that I genuinely did not see coming while I was reading this.
Because you haven't read this before, right? This is your first time.
Yeah, reading it for the show is the first time I read it. Yes,
right. And I read it around when it came out, if not right when it came out, which is why I think it came out after Revival. I'm going to end up looking that up. Hold on. I got Xenopedia. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I have 14 Xenopedia articles open right now for this episode, and I have 2 AVP Galaxy tabs open.
I have one tab open on my browser, and it is currently displaying the cover of Alien Annual #1 2022.
Nice. I just got to get an answer on this. Alien Revival. Come on. September 2021 to June 2022. So then the annual came out right as Revival finished up. Okay. I'm not crazy. So how do you want to do this, Kenny? This has a pretty basic plot. Do you want to just like hit the broad strokes and then maybe talk in detail about specific things? Or do you want to just like not really read along like we did? I'm trying to think of how we do one shots, right? Because usually when we're talking full story arc, there's a lot to go through.
Yeah.
But this is just a one shot. And the only other one shot we've really done was Aliens Aftermath.
Mm-hmm.
Or if we're reading comics on the show.
Well, here.
Yeah.
How about this? All right. The premise of this comic is Gabriel Cruz and a squad of Marines get sent on a mission that turns out to actually have like hidden Weyland-Yutani style objectives they don't know about. And all of them except Cruz get killed by a xenomorph.
Okay. You want to just call it there? 18 minutes?
I mean, that's the premise of the comic. That is what happens. There is also a combat synth who, because he is a synth, is secretly working for Weyland-Yutani.
Sure.
And he turns out to actually be a different synth than the one we're introduced to originally,
right.
Which legitimately caught me off guard.
That's what caught you off guard.
Yeah, that's the thing that legitimately surprised me while I was reading it.
I'll tell you, it surprised me too, but I was expecting something different.
But yeah, like I said, that's basically the gist of like the premise of the comic.
Okay.
And then from there, why don't we just like go into specific parts we wanted to talk about?
I think we should go. I almost immediately have something I want to talk about. So I think that's a good way to do it. And I think that we're probably going to end up hitting most beats, right?
Oh, one other thing that I forgot to mention. The whole reason they're sent on this mission is because a whole bunch of protesters, or as WY refers to them as terrorists,
sure,
took over a space station, and they decided they wanted to send in a xenomorph to kill all of them.
The organism.
But they're like, we don't actually know if they're combat ready yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to send a squad of Marines with a xenomorph that they don't know is there.
Well,
and then we'll just kind of see what happens.
They do know it's there. They're all aware of what the mission is.
Okay, that's true.
Yeah.
That was me misspeaking and getting it wrong and remembering it incorrectly. Yes,
right.
The Marines do know they're there to send out a xenomorph.
Right.
That is true.
Which is fucking a fascinating idea, honestly. Especially given how inspired by Fireteam this was, right?
It sure is. He even is. One point in the comic even literally calls him the leader of a fire team.
Right. Yes. And Weyland-Yutani is like, we're going to send in a fire team.
Yeah.
Philip Kennedy Johnson, I think you showed me an interview where he talked about the annual and like really wanted to do something that tied into Fire Team. He's a big fan of Fire Team. Philip, if you're listening to this, I loved Icarus and I would love to play Fire Team with you. Prestige rank 65. Mother at crewexpendable.net. We'll set it up.
That's right.
Yeah. And I also really liked this annual. I did. I genuinely thought this was a cool one-off story. We'll see how I feel about Bloodlines later. Don't let that stop you from playing Fireteam with me, Philip Kennedy Johnson. If anyone out there knows him, get this to him.
What was the thing you immediately wanted to start talking about?
Basically the idea, I mean, first of all, hell yeah, the secondhand movement, these protesters, right? Burning Weyland-Yutani jackets and shit, you know, taking over Nishimura Station, right? Good for them.
Yep.
And they fucking succeed in this story, don't they? Like
they sure do.
They're doing good work, and I'm a big fan of these anti Weyland-Yutani organizers, right?
I referred to them as protesters earlier.
I know. I'm trying to come up with I don't want to call them terrorists because that's what Weyland-Yutani calls them. Exactly. So. Right. I like that. Anyway, they got the right idea. Also, definitely some of these like skull masks that they're wearing You can definitely put some of those things on your Marine and fire team. I think that's a clear fire team reference, at least the one in the second panel there. I believe like that is directly something you can put on your Marine. But yeah, so we've got this like Weyland-Yutani board, right? And they're like, you know, we got the alien, right? We've got a strain of xenomorphs we're raising on Epsilon Station. Remember that name, kids. It will come into play heavily in Bloodlines.
It sure will.
It's time to send one of the organisms in. Let's send it into Nishimura Station and see what it can do, right? And they're like, well, look, it ain't housebroken yet. We can't really rely on it. And they're like, so let's send in a synthetic with it to monitor the situation, right? And then we get like this little this conversation about the core directive legislation, right? The reason that Bishop said he cannot harm or by mission of action allow anyone to be harmed, blah, blah, blah. You know, the Isaac Asimov thing.
Yeah.
The difference between Bishop and Ash, right? Something that happened between in those 57 years between the movies gets referenced here. So they're like, let's just load up like a backup, like an old synth operating system into one of our combat droids that is not regulation, right? That doesn't have the same sort of safety protocols, which interesting idea, right? Yeah. Weird that they can just do that, but also makes total sense. That's like some shit that Weyland-Yutani would do, you know?
Yeah, it's not weird that they are doing it, but it's weird that like it's possible to do that. Right.
They're like, I don't know. Let's just like reinstall like Windows 95 on this on this gaming PC.
That is pretty much what happened. Yes.
Yeah, but it's all compatible somehow. So hey, you know, it worked out. I mean, maybe there's a big combat synth like modding community out there. They got DOSBox running on these things or something. Right?
Yeah, who fucking knows?
Yeah. But we get a nice panel showing the combat synths, you know, decked out in their white gear like we see them again in Fireteam. This thing is full of Fireteam references, aesthetically at least, right? But that's the plan, man. They're going to send in some a synthetic, right? And they're going to put Gabriel Cruz in charge of this Marine fire team. Now, what year does this story take place? I believe it takes place in 2193. I think it's 13 years.
2193. That is correct.
Yeah. We'll learn more about this next time, but the credits page here does show us that in 2180, Gabriel Cruz encountered an alien, right? And helped bring back the first living xenomorph specimen. So in this Marvel canon, in the year 2180, Weyland-Yutani finally got their hands on a xenomorph, right?
Thanks to him, apparently.
Thanks to him.
According to this. Yes. Now, the specifics for how he's able to do that, we'll talk about in Bloodlines. Hint, hint, hint.
Right. Yeah, we're not going to go too deep into those things, but just an interesting bit of information. So now we're introduced to the Marine ship, which according to Xenopedia is one of two different classes, right? Two different types of ship. Mm-hmm. Where the hell did that tab go? It is either
you only have 14 of them to go through, so it shouldn't be that hard to find it.
Something like that. It is either a Conestoga class troop transport or a Bougainville class attack transport ship. We'll never know. But it is called the USS Francis Marion, which is interesting. According to the trivia section, it is likely named after an actual Revolutionary War soldier named Francis Marion, also known as the Swamp Fox. But it's called the Marion, right? And the synthetic, who we haven't revealed the identity of yet, does refer to the ship as just the USS Marion. I think at least once, maybe more than once. And that name, why is that name so familiar, Kenny?
That name is familiar because that is the same name that the ship from Out of the Shadows had.
That's right. The mining orbital, right? The DSMO Marion around LV-178.
I should point out that ship is called the Marion, and this one is called the Francis Marion. So it's not actually called the same thing,
right?
But practically speaking, like you said, they just call this ship the Marion in this comic. So
yeah, but
that's me shrugging.
I don't know, and it's not an exact repeat, right? Like, but that would be like if, I don't know, do you think they got a space station out there somewhere in Alien franchise called the Conrad, and then they've got the USS Joseph Conrad, you know? Like, it just seems extremely similar. So when I first read this issue, I was like, the Marion, they're kind of reusing a name. That's wild, right? I've never seen that as far as I know. Like, I know that there's like small things, like I know that I can't pull the name, but I know that the ship that you're on in Aliens Infestation is the same name as the ship in Colonial Marines, but that's because Infestation started as a Colonial Marines, like a 2D portable version of Colonial Marines, right?
Yeah, it was like the reason why the ships are called the same was because it was originally intended to be the same ship,
right? So. Yeah, and it's, you know, forgive them, like it's a DS game, right? Nobody really cared. But
yeah.
Out of the Shadows wasn't exactly like it's not obscure, right? Certainly among Alien fans, and the Marvel Comics Annual has also been read by a lot. It's just, I don't know, just interesting. But I was like, all right, cool, I'll let it go, right? Mm-hmm. So we meet our Marine crew, and we get the thing that I really don't like, which is lousy Marine dialogue.
There's a lot of it in this first couple of pages, that's for sure.
A lot of like, hey man, I should get hazard pay for this shit, and like, what do you even, you fucking robot, right? Because the synth is there, and they're just like, I don't know, man, it's just not good.
Yeah,
and I'm not taking a shot at the writing. It's never good. It never works, and like, I don't know why people keep trying. You know, I can't, I don't think anybody has ever successfully done it. Like, the most successful version I think we've had in terms of stuff we've covered on the show is Icarus, right? But they weren't, but those were synths, and they were talking, they weren't trying to talk like tough space Marines, right?
Yeah,
I don't know. It bugs me. I just want to be clear. It bugs the fuck out of me in Fireteam too. Like, as much as I love that game, a lot of that radio chatter from the different people is just really bad. That's just something anyway, I'm not going to dwell on it too much. Right. I just wanted to comment, like, we got a lot of that in here in this book. So, anyway, on this ship, this android, this battle combat synth that is named Charlie, right? That's the call sign, which I thought also nice, because when you play Fireteam, if you end up playing with AI, right, like a computer on your side, you've got Alpha and Beta are the names of the two. And there's only ever two because it's a 3-person game, right? So I like the idea that now we've got Charlie. Like, that's a fun, that's fun little reference there as well. But the ship is approaching Nishimura Station, so Gabriel Cruz is telling the synth that he's got to go check on the specimen, right? Mm-hmm. And then we get the reveal of how they're doing this, right?
Yeah. Turns out the specimen isn't like a xenomorph. The specimen is, they captured some guy, and then they have an ovomorph in a big container that they put right in front of the guy.
Yeah, dude, they're gonna, like, it's wild, but it also makes sense, right? It is, like, they can't just have a xenomorph on board. They're not going to be able to control that thing and put it on the ship. They can't just put the ovomorph on the ship because the ovomorph could get destroyed, right? Mm-hmm. They could see it. They could just blow it up. Nobody could ever find it. It might just lay dormant, etc. So to take this poor man, and get him knocked up with a face hugger, right, with a chest burster, and then put him on the ship, That makes some sense. That really is kind of like the best way to deliver a xenomorph into a situation, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, but it's pretty fucked up.
Also, what's fucked up is as Charlie is prepping to make that happen, on their approach to Nishimura Station, the station suddenly fires a bunch of fucking rockets at them.
It does. Yeah, man. The second-hand movement does not fuck around. I'm still looking at this page with the prisoner who's going to get put in, impregnated, right? Mm-hmm. And he's saying shit like, corporations can't hold political prisoners, man. You can't do this. And he's like, what are you doing? That's one of those things from Epsilon, man. Don't touch it. So he knows about Epsilon Station, right? Whoever this guy is. We don't know who he is, but
we have no idea. And spoiler alert, he's about to die.
Yeah, we're not going to find out who he is either. But yeah, dude, yeah, it's a really intense scene. Like, you see him like crying and like begging Charlie to like get that shit away from him, and then we just sort of see the facehugger egg open as the missiles come and impact the Marion, right?
Yeah, the missiles hit the Marion. Everything gets their shit rocked.
Yeah,
and turns out that in the explosion, I don't know if the facehugger died, but the prisoner definitely died in the explosion.
Yes. The prisoner
and Charlie's.
Yeah. The prisoner died. I don't think that the facehugger did, though.
Yeah, I don't like, now that I'm looking at it again, I don't think it does, because that's the facehugger that he uses to, spoiler alert, find a wounded Marine and implant the facehugger on that guy instead. Yeah,
it's kind of wild, because we start seeing, synthetic crewmen designate Charlie transmitting to Weyland-Yutani on a secure wireless channel, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we're starting to get Charlie's voiceover, right? And he says that the organism is okay, essentially, but the host is dead. And he's like, my mission, he's talking about his mission is to observe and report the organism's performance in the field, but is no longer achievable as initially conceived. So he's altering the mission parameters, right? Because this ship is now just adrift in space. They cannot get to the Nishimura, right? They can't complete this mission. So the android here, he's like rewiring his goals. He's like, I got to observe this thing in the field. Time to make a new field, right? I got survivors here. So,
but yeah, Charlie goes checking out the wreckage. Cruz got knocked unconscious. He's believed to be in a coma. Multiple crew members are dead. Pretty much everyone is wounded. And then one of the wounded people mysteriously disappears, and Charlie doesn't know what happened to him. In actuality, Charlie put a fucking facehugger on him.
Sure did, yeah. Yes. Should we have named this show Cruise Expendable?
Well, I guess he's considered to be a comic, I suppose.
Maybe this episode we'll name it. We sometimes do the little tag on the title.
Yeah,
this one will be Cruise Expendable.
But also at this point, the comic. Well, actually, technically, it did it earlier, but this is the first time it starts happening in a meaningful way. The comic starts doing, like, in the narration boxes, like day 1, day 2, day 3. All that stuff happened on day 1. Day 2, the only thing that happens is that wounded Marine with the facehugger dies when a chest burster comes out of him. That's the only thing that happens on day 2.
Yes. Good news. Implantation was successful. I got to hit one thing on day 1 in the result of this. I got to close some of these tabs. Okay.
All right.
So Charlie is mentioning in his status report that crew members Harada, Norris, and Herrera are dead. I'm sorry, I can't roll my R's. Herrera. I gave it a shot. Okay.
I can't do it either.
Yes.
So.
that name stuck out to me because there is a Lieutenant Herrera in Fireteam. Okay. So I typed for, Herrera into Xenopedia, and it gave me 3 results. All right. Alejandra Herrera, who is in Fireteam. She's often on the radio. She's the one who calls the little pathogen poppers spicy nuggets, for instance. Then there are 2 others. There is a Rafael Herrera, who is a character from a comic book series called Predator Hunters. So not an alien book, right? Strictly a Predator. I believe it's a comic book. Again, we're not a Predator podcast. And then there is Ben Herrera, a penciler who penciled the Aliens versus Predator Xenogenesis comic for Dark Horse. So I'm willing to bet this is a reference to Alejandra Herrera from Fireteam, even though Fireteam is, a story set several years after this. I couldn't find anything if it's intended to be like a relative or anything, which I thought might be cool. It might be a cool tie-in, but anyway, the name just jumped out to me, so I did a little digging. I like to think that this is a comic book, so it might specifically be a reference to an artist of another Marvel or of another Alien versus Predator comic book. That might just be a fun Easter egg.
It's more likely that it's a Fireteam reference, considering in that interview you mentioned earlier, he said, "Oh yeah, I put a bunch of Fireteam references in that comic."
Maybe he also didn't like the dialogue from Fireteam and was like, "I'm going to kill one of them off."
The one thing I want to mention about like day 1 and day 2 is the final panel of day 1 with the soldier like strapped to the seat, and like the facehugger is like crawling up on him. We see him in the seat, and then you go to the next page and we see the facehugger coming out, and this soldier, this Marine, suddenly has arms covered in tattoos that on the previous page he did not have.
Good catch.
But yeah, like I said, the facehugger gets born, or sorry, the chestburster gets born.
Those are some pretty sick sleeves, though. He's got
They sure are.
He's got a wolf like on. He's got some other shit.
Like I said, that's the only thing that happens on day 2. Day 3 is when Cruz wakes up, and Charlie tells him that the implant didn't take.
Yes.
And because he's been unconscious for the last 2 days, he thinks Charlie is referring to the first guy, not knowing that the implant is actually in a soldier now.
Right. Yeah. He's like, show me, get me a rifle and show me. I want to see it. So Charlie does take him to Charlie staged this pretty well, right? Because Charlie says that Marino, the one who actually was implanted, died of his wounds. He's got the body in the secret, area that only he had access to, so nobody else could find it. But he's like staged this. He's got the face hugger, the curled up face hugger. His story is that it died while it was implanting the host, and it tried for nearly an hour after the host's death to implant but was unsuccessful, and then it just sort of died. And he's got the face of, there's a face of a body here that's all fucked up, right?
Yeah,
like he's trying to conceal the identity. So like maybe he took the host, I don't know. This doesn't track because the tattoos would be a dead giveaway, right? Or the lack of tattoos, I guess. But it was like maybe he's trying to pass the host body off as somebody else. I don't really know what he's doing.
Well, to be fair,
he's done a good job covering his ass in any case.
Well, you remember, we never actually see Cruz check the body that Charlie presents him.
Right.
So maybe he's just like, oh, if I cover it up and fuck up the face, he'll be expecting the face to be fucked up. So
yeah, I'm just basing it off this specific panel because it's showing that person in the corner, and then it's showing the face hugger, and then it's showing Cruz for 2 panels, and then it's showing that a close up on that body. So that body is somehow important to the story. I just don't understand what it's supposed to be. If it's supposed to be the host,
to be fair,
to be fair, it's not actually important to the story because that's the last time we ever see it. So
yeah, and I think I'm overthinking it. It probably is just the host's body, and he destroyed the face to be like, see, he couldn't implant. So here's the dead host, and here's the body, and everything checks out, and I don't know, the other person's missing. So I think I was overthinking that for a second there. Guys, I just finished my round of antibiotics, and I am still taking like a lot of Mucinex, so I ain't all here, okay? I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this for you, the listener. You're welcome.
And then we cut to day 4, which has an extremely cool scene that I really like a lot.
Thanks.
Where Cruz is on the radio sending a distress signal to Wayland Yutani, while literally at the same time, Charlie is standing next to him, watching him send this distress signal, while he himself is like silently sending a wireless signal over a secure channel also to Wayland Yutani to be like, disregard everything Cruz is saying. We don't need help. Don't come. Everything is fine. And I was like, see, that's good writing.
First of all, thanks for pulling me back. I was going off the rails there for a second, Kenny. Thanks for pulling me back in. This kind of ruled. This was very, very fucking cool and made a lot of sense, right? And there's something so fascinating about the fact that we're never seeing Wayland Yutani like sending information back to Charlie, right?
Yeah.
He's just sending but we see that we can tell that they're getting his messages because on day 5 they nuke the Nishimura. So I guess they sure
the fuck do.
The second hand didn't really win after all, right? They held out for a while. They did a good job there. But the Cruz and his crew are like, what the fuck? Like, they just nuked the Nishimura. Why aren't they sending help for us? They know that we're out here and we're stranded. And it's like, because they're on board with Charlie's plan, right? Wayland Yutani is like, oh, good. We get our field test anyway, right?
Yeah, they like still think. Yeah, exactly.
This Crew's crew is expendable.
Yep.
So.
And Cruz gets real pissed off that the ship that came by and nuked the Nishimura. And by the way, that's not like me being poetic. They literally say in the comic they used a nuclear weaponry to destroy it. They literally nuked the Nishimura. They did. Like, he gets on the radio and he's like, I know you can hear me, you son of a bitch. Come back and pick us up right goddamn now. And they just keep flying away.
Send help. But they don't.
Yeah. And that was day 5. We cut to day 6, where something bad is happening, of course, because it's an alien comic.
Sure.
But specifically what's happening is that some part of the ship is venting their like usable oxygen.
Yeah, somewhere off the engine room, right?
And so Charlie is like, oh yeah, give me a guy and me and him will go down there and fix it. And Cruz is like, absolutely not. We don't go solo. I'm bringing someone with me. And Charlie's like, no, one person should be fine. And Cruz is like, I don't give a fuck. Shut up. 2 people are going. Yeah. And Charlie's like, fine.
This doesn't, I get it. Like, I don't understand exactly why he's so paranoid and doesn't want anyone alone on the ship. Like, is he suspecting foul play already? Like, he must be, right? I mean, he doesn't know. Like, Cruz thinks the facehugger died. He doesn't know that there's a threat. Like, none of them know. The xenomorph that is loose on here hasn't attacked anybody yet. Part of this is Charlie's plan to get the xenomorph to start, like, to get his, like, shit going, like, get his shit in gear and start fucking up Marines, right?
Yep.
But Cruz is just, is he just being extra careful, right? Like, no, we travel in pairs and synths don't count, so 2 of us are going with you. Yep.
And he
just being cautious, I guess.
He brings a guy named Shipley along with him.
Sure.
And Cruz, Shipley, and Charlie go down to what room was it?
They go to the engine room.
Oh, engine room. Okay.
And the patches they need for this oxygen thing, they have to shut the O2 line down, patch it, and turn it back on. And the patches, Kenny, are in the boiler room.
Well, you forgot to mention one interesting detail. When they find the pipe that the oxygen is venting out of, the hole that it's coming out of was opened up by acid.
Sure, but that is after the boiler room mention. So I didn't forget. I just didn't get there yet. I just really wanted to hit. I just really wanted to hit boiler room.
See, you say it's after that, but in the interest of fair play, I will point out to the listeners that the scene where we see the acid opened up the pipe and the scene where they say that the Pat should be in the boiler room is the same panel. So whether you look at the image or read the text first will determine which one of us was correct.
No, it's three we have, okay. All right. We're doing this. We got one panel with the three of them looking up at the venting line. Then we got, we need to shut off the O2 line. Chief Cruz patches to be in the boiler room. Next panel, we got Cruz going to the boiler room. Next panel, we got Shipley looking at the acid burns. Okay.
Okay. Look at the first panel in the second column where it says the sound effect.
Yes.
You can see green on the pipe around where the oxygen is coming out.
You can, all right, fair. You can kind of see something, but not in enough detail to know that it's acid. I mean, except that it's an Alien comic, so what else would it be, right?
I mean, I saw the green and immediately went, oh, that's acid. And the reason this is significant, listeners, is because 2 panels later, there's a close-up where they clearly show it as acid, but I pegged it as acid the first time they showed it. That's why we had this conversation.
All right, whatever.
Agree
to disagree.
There's no disagreeing. I'm right. Anyway, Charlie sends Cruz to the boiler room to get the patches.
And he just locks that asshole right in the fucking boiler
room.
And
then he just fucking closes the door and turns the lock on it. And he's like, wait, what the fuck?
He's like, get fucked, Cruz. And he goes up to Shipley and just puts his fist through the guy's mouth.
Yep. Just literally just breaks his jaw open. Yeah.
Shipley's like, Charlie, what the hell are you doing? And Charlie says, that's not my name.
Yeah. And tell me, Neal, what is his real name?
To quote this synthetic, I'm a Hyperdyne model 120-A2 designated Ash. And I was never meant to be housed inside this blunt object. Guys, it's an Ash. We have an Ash.
Yeah. It sure is.
Gonna rewind all the way back to the beginning. They were talking about sending in somebody with experience with the Xenomorph. Is that correct? Or am I remembering that? Is correct.
No, you're remembering that correctly.
And they were talking about that in the context of Cruz, right? No, they were. They were talking about it in the context of a synthetic, right? They said one that has history with our bioweapon. I'm confident it has the company's interests at heart. Yeah. So they were talking about the synthetic in there.
Yeah.
Did that tip you off that it was Ash when you read that?
It didn't at the time because I guess I must have, forgotten about that specific line of dialogue by this point in the comic or whatever. But I just read that and I was like, oh, they're just going to send in some synth that's interacted with xenomorphs before because they're Weyland-Yutani.
It could be anything,
I assumed they had more than one synth that's been around xenomorphs before.
There was a possibility it might have been a bishop, even though the bishops we know are models that can't harm humans. That doesn't necessarily mean it was always the case, right? I don't know. I'll tell you, I was like, I didn't know it was Ash, but I was hoping it was David. I remember hoping that it was David, that they were somehow got a David. That felt like some shit that Philip Kennedy Johnson would have done,
This is an audio medium, so nobody but me would know this if I didn't mention it, which is why I'm mentioning it. The moment you said I was hoping it was a David, I actually instinctively rolled my eyes.
Of course you fucking did. But come on, this is the comic book written by the man who wrote David Wept in his all synthetic Icarus storyline, right?
That's true. That's true.
Like, I don't think it's outrageous for. I mean, Icarus came out afterwards. I understand people. All right, stop writing emails. That's the cold medicine talking. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm such a dick right now, but come on, could you? I mean, did this thing walking around? Did you? It had too much dignity to be an Ash, right? Is that just me projecting?
I mean, I guess, but like the fact that it is an Ash makes sense because once it reveals himself to be Ash, he starts acting like Ash.
He started doing Ash shit, right?
Like up to this point in the comic, he was like, you know, in a guise of someone who was, you know, of someone else. So he wasn't really acting like Ash up until this point.
That's fair. But like, I don't know. Look, maybe I'm the only person out there who's like, come on, cowards, give us some more David. But
well, of the people on the show, you are the one that says that. Yes.
Just give me some more Fassbender. All right. We should have known. I mean, if that dialogue at the beginning, if that conversation about the synthetic didn't give it away, we really should have known that this was going to be an Ash when we saw the name of the ship, though, right? Because we read Out of the Shadows, and that was about Ash setting xenomorphs loose on a orbital miner called the Marion. And this book, it turns out, is about Ash setting xenomorphs loose on a military ship called the Marion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just another similarity. Right. It's just like, this is what makes it feel so intentional. And I have this weird, I think the canon status of Out of the Shadows is kind of questionable. Is that a fair thing to say?
Yes, that is a fair thing to say.
Is it considered non-canon?
I don't think so, but I think it's one of those things where what other websites would call broad strokes canon,
right,
where the gist of it is canon, but a lot of the details are contradicted by more official things.
Gotcha. So it's not like, yeah, it's not super duper canon, and especially because there's like differences between the audio drama and the novelization, as we discussed, right? Mm-hmm. And yeah, okay. So part of me wonders if maybe Marvel was like, we don't know if we're going to keep that stuff canon, but like, is there something specific that references Ash and the Marion just in vague terms that they did want to have canon, but they wanted to have something else to point to that isn't Out of the Shadows, in case they were like, that's no longer part of our canon now that 20th century, or now that Disney owns 20th century or something. Do you get what I'm saying?
Could be.
Like,
I mean, I do. I just don't really have an answer for you. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what their motivation for was behind that. Yeah,
because I guess this could just be an homage, right? But it feels so weird to make an homage to something in the exact same franchise, right?
I mean, it's just like an Easter egg. I mean, like, you know, just like all the references to Fire Team in this comic, that's right, also a reference to another thing in the same franchise.
It is, but it's with the exception of the name Herrera, who is definitely not the same Herrera, right? Mm-hmm. That's things like combat synths existing and weapons existing, like the looks of weapons and the looks of like marine gear, and kind of just set dressing and some terminology, not specific events. Like, this is like this is almost an alternate version of a specific plot point from Out of the Shadows, just minus Ripley and minus certain survivors, right?
I mean, here's the thing. That is true, but like, again, I don't know what his motivation was for coming up with this plot. I don't know what got him to think of it, so I couldn't begin to tell you, not even just if it was intentional, but like why he would have done it if it was. Like, I genuinely have no fucking idea.
Yeah, and we're not gonna get to the bottom of it here. I just find it interesting, you know.
Anyway, Ash punches this guy's jaw off, and then a xenomorph comes out of nowhere and alienses the guy.
Aliens the fuck out of this dude, right? Splits him right in the middle horizontally.
Yeah.
Throws to either side.
And right before that, he pins the guy down and sticks its pharyngeal jaw directly through the middle of his face.
Yeah,
we see it pop out the back of the guy's head while Ash watches and goes, "You have my sympathies." There you go.
That's how we know it's the same fucking Ash, right? Because he says,
well, as far as I don't want to say there's only the one Ash, but like I was always under the impression that Ash was like not a model. That was the name of that one specific synth.
Right.
But like, I don't know. I mean, that's the only time we ever really saw that model of synth. So maybe all of them are named Ash. I have no idea.
Well, maybe there just aren't that many. I do think that this is very directly some backup of Nostromo's Ash. I think it's supposed to be. Yeah,
that was actually something I was going to mention earlier. Like, I don't think this is an Ash. I think this is intended to be specifically the Ash from the first movie.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Because, again, this is a minor spoiler for a comic book that came out before this one. Like, they do the same sort of thing with the Bishop android in Bloodlines, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I could be wrong about that too. We'll find out soon. So day 8, right?
Yep. That all of that happened on day 6, and then it cuts to day 8. And day 8 is the day where the Xenomorph finally shows up and kills all the other crew members.
Yeah, and we got Ash waxing philosophically about the Xenomorph and its versatility and all of these things and how beautiful and it is and how it tours across the hall on 4 legs and stands on 2.
Just the same bullshit that Ash was spouting in the movie. Yeah.
It instinctually knows which prey to run down in the open and which to take from the shadows, which this comic book took from out of the shadows. Just a little thing I had to say for some reason.
That's fine.
Now, we're having a good time, aren't we, Kenny? Now, I have an issue with this test, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ash took away the explosive rounds, the incendiary rounds, right?
He sure did.
Also a fire team reference, right? The incendiary rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Not a fair test, dude. You're going to field test this thing, fucking field test it, right? In real combat, don't nerf your test subjects, your guinea pigs, right? The whole point of this thing was to actually let it loose and see what it could do in the field, right?
Well, okay. I'm not saying this is a valid explanation, but I will say, in the interest of fair play, that the comic does specifically have Ash state, but to ensure the organism's survival, that's the reason he got rid of the rounds. I'm not saying that's a good excuse, but I am saying that the comic hand waves it away.
Right. And I understand, like, those incendiary rounds are going to come back at the end. So, like, I get it. It creates Chekhov's incendiary rounds, right?
Yeah.
But, like, does this mean that when Ash, formerly known as Charlie, was going to go on board the Nishimura with the Xenomorph, it was also then going to like intervene and do things to help the Xenomorph be successful?
Well, that time they probably wouldn't need to, because the people they were originally going to send the Xenomorph against were not, Marines. They were just like some jackasses.
That's fair. I guess, but I don't know. I just saw that and I was like, come on, man, this ain't a good, like, you're tampering with the results. Your mission isn't to ensure the Xenomorph survives. You guys got plenty of other ones on Epsilon. Your mission is to see what this thing can actually fucking do. And then if the Xenomorph dies, then you report back to Weyland-Yutani that the Xenomorph died, and then Weyland-Yutani nukes the Marion out of space anyway.
Well, yeah, but remember, if the Xenomorph dies, then his mission is a failure. He can't let the Xenomorph die. That's the whole point. They only have the one with them. Sure,
you're right. So by his logic, he's maybe kind of gone off book a little bit to ensure his mission is successful, because that is all he cares about.
To be fair, going off book is classic Ash, baby. He kind of does that a lot.
He's had improv classes for sure. He yes ands like with the best of them.
That's right.
Which I don't, by the way.
Yeah, I'm really bad at improving as well.
I'm a no but, especially when I'm on Mucinex DM.
then there is a very brief interjection of day 23 where nothing really happens. It's just multiple panels of the empty abandoned ship where everything is covered in blood, while Ash just kind of ruminates over the top of it. But he doesn't really say anything meaningful. He's just, talking about the Xenomorph. Then
how bad he wants to suck that Xeno dick.
That is correct. And then it cuts to day 39 where everything finally happens again.
We should say we do in day 23, we do get scenes like the Xenomorph has secreted resin everywhere. Right. And we got some bodies trapped up in it. It's nesting. The cryo tubes are all fucked up, and it's maybe not in the same engine room, but it's in another industrial facility where it's kind of now like hunkered down and hibernating because it's killed everything as far as it knows, right?
That is correct.
But now we're on day 39 where Ash's research is set back today.
And he said that he was, saving Cruz for another trial. But when he went to go get him, the door swings open and Cruz pulls out a huge gun and demolishes Charlie's head with a hail of bullets. Yeah. And Cruz has his hair grew out. He has a perfectly styled beard somehow.
He looks good.
Yeah. And apparently while he was stuck in that the boiler room, was it the boiler room?
He was locked in the boiler room.
Yeah, he opened up, he pulled out part of the wall and slipped into a closet that was next to it. And turns out that closet had not just a gun, but all those incendiary rounds that Ash took earlier. I guess that's where he stored them, because Cruz found them all and uses it to,
I think,
he doesn't actually kill Ash, but he basically kills Ash.
I think he just found this gun that still had incendiary rounds in it that Ash had missed. What I'm focusing on here is Ash. The Ash formerly known as Charlie is saying, I was saving Chief Cruz for one final human trial, one I suspected even the company may have found ethically objectionable. What fucked up shit did he have in his mind? And why did it? I mean, day 23, everyone else is dead. So 16 days later, he's like, now it's time. Right? Was it just like trying to starve this man? How did Cruz survive? Was there like water in there too?
We don't find out. Just like whatever human trial he hints at here, we're never told. We never find out. It never gets brought up again. It is not like narratively relevant. It's just told to us in passing while they're talking about other stuff. So who knows how he survived? Who knows where he found a beard trimmer? I have no idea.
It is immaculately groomed.
They never elaborate Ash never elaborates as to what it was he was talking about, and he doesn't have the chance because, like I said, when he opens the door, his head gets blown into pieces by a hail of bullets.
Yeah, and the weapon in question looks to be an M41A pulse rifle. And the default rifle and fire team.
While it's still smoking, he gets attacked by that Xenomorph. And then he pulls out those explosive rounds, baby, and blows one of the arms off of the Xenomorph.
He sure fucking
shoots
does.
It again. Yeah, shoots it a second time, and it gets real pissed off and leaves. And then Charlie tries to stop him, and then Cruz shoots him a bunch more.
Yeah. Ash is like, you're selfish. You're unable to put our mission above your own animalistic instinct to survive. And Cruz is like, it's not about me. Bop, bop, right? 2 in the dome, you know?
And then it cuts back to Ash, waxing philosophical and ruminating some more over a series of panels of Cruz making his way through the station, getting onto a rescue, not a rescue ship, but, a ship.
An EEV, similar to the EEV from Alien 3.
And he just gets on it and flies away. And while he's flying away, we see one final panel of the Xenomorph, because there's only the one, crawling out through a big hole on the side of the wreckage and clinging onto the outside of the ship, screaming at the EEV while it flies away.
Yeah, this is a dope panel. And then we get Ash's sort of final transmission, which is what Coolerbot read at the beginning of this episode.
It sure is.
Yeah, and that is the end of the Alien Annual from last year.
Mm-hmm. I would like to say I'm again reading this comic on the website where I illegally read pirated comics for free, and someone left a comment on this 6 months ago. It's the only comment.
Mm-hmm.
It does not have any thumbs up or thumbs down, no hearts, no nothing. They just left this comic and that's it. It says, and I quote, "This comic is the tits. Fucking awesome."
You know, I'm inclined to agree. I think that this is a pretty fun book.
For all you listeners out there that were picturing the comment in your head, both of those sentences have 2 exclamation points at the end.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, one for each, right?
That's right.
Jesus Christ. I
But
wish.
yeah, that
Look,
is-
I called this a no edit. I'm sticking to it.
That is Alien Annual #1, baby.
This one probably should be edited, but we're going for it. We're just putting it out there. Kenny, we've talked about the art in broad strokes of these.
We've mentioned it in passing
Yes.
a few times. Yes.
The Salvador LaRocca artwork for Bloodlines. I'll tell you, it works a little better for me in this than it does in Bloodlines. I don't know if it's just a different way of, doing the colors or something, but like the human faces leave a lot to be desired. Everyone sort of feels
Everyone's face, like, I don't want to say everyone's face looks the same, because that's not true, but everyone's face looks similar.
I said it privately to another friend of ours, the meanest thing I think I've ever said in my life, and I'm going to repeat it here on the podcast for everybody. And I'm sorry, and I want everyone to know I felt bad for saying this. But when I watched,
So he's going to repeat it. Good work.
I'm coming clean, okay?
Okay, all right. That's fair.
When I watched Scream 6, I told this friend of ours that Courtney Cox looked like she was wearing a Courtney Cox mask for the entire thing. And I feel really bad about saying that. But everyone in this comic book looks like they're wearing a mask of what their face looks like. Does that make sense?
See, the thing of it is that, I mean, it does make sense, but like I will say, going back through the book again, one thing I noticed is that the less amount of people there are in a panel, the better the art looks, because with less people around, it's harder to notice how the faces kind of look a little weird. And ironically, I will say, I do feel a little bit bad about talking about the art in this book, especially like when Cruz shows up, because like, I don't want to say it's like bad or everything, but like, like I said, it's just like some of the stuff about the artwork looks kind of weird, but like Cruz specifically, since he's the main character, he's the character we always see. The look of Cruz is visibly based off of the artist.
Oh,
like Cruz doesn't straight up look like the artist, but the artist used himself as a reference to design what Cruz looks like.
That's wild. So
I will say, though, I will go on record right now. I am not the world's biggest fan of like the human character designs, like, Salvador LaRocca. I'm not saying he's a bad artist. He's a good artist.
Well, we're gonna dive into this more. I just looked up a picture of Salvador LaRocca. You're 100% correct. Holy smokes, I never knew that.
Yeah, I remembered reading somewhere about that, about something. But yeah, like, you know, I'm not saying he's a bad artist, and he is in fact a good artist. He's a way better artist than I'll ever be able to be.
Same.
I would never been able to do anything like this in a million years.
Same here. I couldn't. His humans look like human beings. Mine would never.
I don't love the way he draws humans. Like I said, it's especially because of the face. I can't pinpoint it. I'm having trouble coming up with like the language.
I'll tell you,
to be able to describe what it is that is off to me about the faces.
So
it's the faces of the humans I don't love. But I will say I absolutely fucking love the way he draws xenomorphs.
I do.
I love it so much.
I do too. I want to get back to that, but I want to tie up this thought I had about the way he draws faces, because what I was going with the mask thing is that everyone just sort of like there's not enough definition, or there's too much highlighting, or there's not enough highlighting. It's never the right amount. Everyone looks just kind of rubbery, like the skin doesn't look like skin. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Neal, go back to the meeting of the Weyland-Yutani executives at the beginning of the book.
Yeah.
Everyone's faces look kind of lumpy in a place, in spots on their face that if you saw a real person that looked like that, there wouldn't be lumps there.
Right. Yeah. And so it's like
everyone looks kind of saggy in a weird way.
Right. And this is the mask thing I was getting at. It's like there's another layer over them that it's like, yeah, it's like a bad skin job. Right.
Yeah. Everything looks a little bit off and a little bit fake now, which is not intentional. That's just his art style. You know?
Now the backgrounds, the environments, all of that stuff looks fan-fucking-tastic.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like that's the other thing. Everything, all of his art, except for the humans generally and human faces specifically, everything else he does looks great.
Yeah. And as you said, also, okay, I'm looking at some Iron Man drawings he's done, because he did Iron Man. I was on the Bing image search. His Iron Man suit looks fucking great.
Yeah.
Also.
Or like another thing here is I'm looking through some of the panels. When we cut
the ship looks good.
When we cut to the Marion and everyone's standing around talking to each other, there's those 3 panels where like the other soldiers are like standing around Charlie and harassing him, and like all 3 of the soldiers' faces in those panels, they just look off in a way that makes them seem not quite human, but I'm having a hard time describing why they look strange.
It feels like he should be doing a more illustrative, cartoonish style, but he's trying to render it more realistically. Like it's just a clash. But like I'm looking at some of this Iron Man art and it's pretty solid. So I don't know, maybe the issue isn't so much with his pencils, maybe the issue is with like the inking and the coloring or something, right? I don't know. But
or like you were like, not so much like you said, but like where my brain took what you said.
Yeah.
Maybe Alien just wasn't the book that played to his strengths.
Well, no, but like then you see things like when the crash happens, when the ship gets hit by the missiles and we see Charlie with the face hugger and the implantation subject, and like just the green and the destruction in there, and like it's and he's got the green flare and everything like that. Those panels look incredible. Charlie looks incredible. It's a robot, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have the same definition. It works
and
really
it's
well.
It's fine if the robot looks a little fake. You know, that's fine.
Yeah.
It works well then.
The panel with Marino, the Marine, the wounded Marine who's going to become the host, the texture on the xenomorph, on the ovomorph egg looks great. The face hugger looks great. The fucking chest burster looks great. The tattoos on Marino's arms look like there's so much about this book that looks really, really fucking good.
Yeah.
And as you said, the xenomorph itself looks fantastic.
So so good. Like, this was
It's
something
so
that we
good.
touched on because, like, you know, the previous, like, when we did Icarus and when we're doing Thaw, like, we've been, you know, when we talk about the art, we go out of our way to be like, what do we think of how the Xenomorphs look in this book? And like, you know, to a T, every single time we've been like, oh, the Xenomorphs look great, you know, because that's kind of like the whole thing. But like, even though I'm not the world's biggest fan of his art style, even when I read Bloodlines for the first time, and spoiler alert, when I read it for the first time, I thought it was pretty mid. I haven't read it since then, so I don't know how I feel about it now, but like, the artwork was not top shelf for me when I read that book, but I walked away from it going, God damn, those Xenomorphs look so fucking good. And having read all of the other, well, I haven't read Revival yet, but having read all of the other arcs, sorry, let me rephrase that. Having read all of the arcs that were done by other artists than this guy, so, you know, Thaw and Icarus.
Well, again, Revival's a different artist as well.
Oh, yes, that's right. Sorry, I apologize. But like, my point is that having read Thaw and having read Icarus, we both agree that the Xenomorphs look great in this book. Of the 3 Marvel Alien arcs I've read, this artist, you know, the one from Bloodlines, does my favorite version of Xenomorphs.
Yeah, I remember.
I like this best of all of the ones I've read.
I remember you mentioning that back on, maybe on Icarus issue 1.
Yeah.
You were like, the Xenomorphs and the other Marvel books look great. And this final panel, this final page of the Xenomorph, you know, outside the ship of bleeding acid, the detailing on that is so impressive. And here's the thing. I'm looking at Cruz with the beard. The issues aren't bothering me here. Maybe it's chins. Maybe chins are the weakness, honestly. The shadowing on the cheeks and stuff too is something that seems weird sometimes, but this man looks handsome with this beard. Maybe that's a personal preference. I don't know, but
the beard suits him, and unfortunately, he does not keep it when we get to Bloodlines.
Right. Well, it ain't regulation, you know.
That's true. You've got me there.
Yeah, no facial hair on anybody in here. Oh, one guy's got some stubble, but that ain't the same thing. You know, I think we cracked it. I think if they did a bearded edition, we'd like just go back and put beards on everyone. Probably look pretty good. There is this one fucked up looking dude at the Weyland-Yutani board meeting, though.
Is it the mustache guy?
Yeah, it's the mustache guy. That guy is fucked up looking.
I'm not saying this is a joke. I'm saying this because it legitimately is what it looks like. The way the guy is drawn, it looks like he had a stroke because one side of his face is kind of droopy in a way the other side is not.
I think he was specifically drawn to be fucked up looking, though. Like, I think that
probably, because
choice.
his face, like, it, I don't want to say it's fucked up in a purposeful way, but his face looks weird in a way the other people's faces don't, which leads me to believe he is intended to look strange.
Agreed. Also, I'm going back through these pages, and I do want to say that body where I was like, I don't know whose body this is with the messed up face. It is absolutely the person who was supposed to be implanted, because you see it on that last panel when Charlie's talking about altering mission parameters right after the accident. You can you see the face hugger on the person, like, climbing away from its mouth, and you see its mouth all jaw broken and smashed open and stuff. So that
also, just for the record, that guy who was supposed to be implanted, his name is Mr. Mallory.
Mr. Mallory.
Just for the record.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I don't know. We should keep an eye out for him. See if there's a Mallory mentioned in Bloodlines.
See if he shows up again.
Or, like, you know, a Mallory could be mentioned in Bloodlines or in Revival, like a distant relative. I mean, we got a Herrera in this, right?
That's true.
Should I check the Xenopedia for a Mallory?
You don't need to, but you can if you want to, I guess.
I'm gonna.
Okay.
I'm going to use the Epsilon Station tab I have open. Mallory.
But yeah, no joke though. This comic was pretty cool. It was fun. The one thing I didn't love about it, which every time I say this, it feels more and more lame. But the one thing I didn't love about it is that I didn't think there was enough Xenomorph in it. I would have liked to see that guy more.
Sure.
But the reason I always feel so weird saying that is because the Xenomorph doesn't even show up in the first movie like until over halfway in.
Right. Or
he's only in the movie for like half an hour or something like that.
Is it exactly at the halfway point it shows up? I don't remember.
No, like the precise halfway point is when Kane dies from the chest burster.
Yeah, that counts. That's when the alien first shows up, though.
Well, no, but I'm talking about specifically the Xenomorph.
The big,
like
the big
I wish there was more Xenomorph in this comic.
More adult Xenomorph. Yeah. Hot adult action.
Yeah, I mean, he killed I don't know, 7 people or however many that they brought along.
Sure.
And we see him kill, we find out that he killed all of them by being shown a montage where we see him kill a couple of them over the course of just a page or two. And I would have just liked to see more Xenomorph carnage because that's fun to me. That's what I like.
Yeah, but I do appreciate that this was one Xenomorph, not an army of Xenomorphs, right?
That's for sure.
And it is featuring Space Marines, but it is I'm going to call them that. I don't know why. I think it's because I downloaded a Warhammer 40,000 game the other day. It is featuring Marines, Colonial Marines, right? But they're under, in a similar situation of aliens. They don't have all their weaponry, right? And they're kind of fucked.
Yeah.
So it's not just blow them away like a fire team would be. So it's one Xenomorph against a bunch of ill-prepared and injured Marines. That's a lot more alien
Mm-hmm.
But Ash talks a lot to this. He monologues to himself or to Wayland Yutani a lot in this, much like David.
Sure. Yep, he sure does.
Much like David does. Could you imagine fucking Ash and David having coffee together? Are you kidding me? I
mean, I guess I could, but I don't think I'm going to.
I'm going to write it. It's not going to be very good because I'm not a very good writer. But I think having the synthetic be the narrator is an interesting choice, and seeing the way that this whole thing plays out from this perspective of I have a mission I'm trying to accomplish. I've altered the parameters. These are the things I'm doing to make sure this works. I'm undermining the commander and sending different information back to Wayland Yutani so that they don't come rescue us. Fascinating, right? And having it be Ash is very interesting also. Yeah, I liked it. This is a little bit more in line with something like Alien. I mean, very directly, right? I mean, they put Ash in it, right?
Yeah.
And then it's
for sure.
And then it's one Xenomorph loose on a ship and a bunch of people who don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah, killing a ship full of people that are not prepared to fight it. Yeah, exactly.
Right. But from Ash's perspective this time. And I don't know. I think that's very cool and a very fun twist on a familiar scenario. Right. Familiar in a couple of ways because, again, it does seem to pretty directly reference some Out of the Shadows stuff. If anyone knows what that's about, mother@crewexpendable.net. Just let us know. We love to learn on this podcast. You know that.
But yeah, I will also say I also think this comic is cool and fun and good. It's not my favorite comic we've ever written, but then again, I've ever read on the show rather. Right. But then again, only one comic can be. So sure. Yeah, I think this comic is cool. It's fun. I like it. I think the action that we do get is fun. I think 90% of the artwork is really good. And I haven't read Bloodlines in a while, but I like this comic more than I remember liking Bloodlines. But then again, my opinion on Bloodlines might change once we read it again, because it's been a while since I've read it. But I like this comic. I think it's pretty cool. Like you said, it's an interesting mix of alien and aliens, because it's one alien fighting a bunch of people that aren't prepared, but those people also have combat training and are Marines.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting little pairing of the two of them that I thought was fun.
It walks a nice, delicate line between the two, and I
Yeah.
think it's fairly successful in what it sets out to do. Question, and you don't have to think too hard about this or even have an answer for it at all, but like, of all of the comic books we have read on the show, I'm not going to ask you what your favorite series is. What's the best single issue you think we've read?
Ooh.
Is it like, is it Archie versus Predator #1?
It is either one of the first two Archie vs. Predators, or there was one middle issue of Icarus that I really, really liked and thought was really good.
Right.
It was one of the middle ones, like 3, 4, right around there. I don't remember specifically which one. And being put on the spot right here, I don't remember the specific events that I'm thinking of in the issue that I liked so much. But I remember there was a middle issue of Icarus I also really liked. But yeah, either one of the first two issues of Archie vs. Predator or one of the middle issues of Icarus probably have been my favorite, like, individual single issue of a comic book so far.
Yeah. I can't think. For me, it might be like maybe issue 2 or 3 of Outbreak.
Mm-hmm.
Whichever one, when the Xenomorphs, whichever issue it was where like the Earth Hive, all the people started breaking in to get face hugged, and then we're like, oh God, what have we done? We're getting face hugged. Like whatever it was.
That was later on. I think that was like issue 4 or 5.
Okay.
I think right around there. I think it was later. I think it was later on.
Gotcha. It might have been one of those, one of the ones that was really Earth heavy. From that was some of my favorite stuff we've read, but I can't identify a specific issue outside of that. And this might be recency bias, but I remember how into Thaw issue 1 I was, because I was just like, I can just like feel the fucking warmth inside the keg and the freezing cold outside in this artwork, and I was just so into whatever was going to happen. But I don't know that like really didn't knock my socks off in the same way. It was just really effective, So I'm going to have to go with Archie vs. Predator issue 1.
It's really fucking fun, man. I still remember. I still can conjure up the feeling in my brain from after I finished reading that issue for the first time, and I went, "What the fuck?"
Maybe you know what? Maybe I'm selling the Xeno sharks a little short. The Deacon sharks from Prometheus, Fire and Stone.
You didn't need to clarify. I remembered what you were talking about.
Okay. Just making the connection now that like that weird fish like Xenomorph in Thaw, dude. Do you think they're? Well,
are you about to ask me if I think they're connected? No, I don't.
No, but do you think there's a possibility maybe in this annual that's coming out that we might? Because like I'm going to speculate that the annual has something to do with this. LV, was it 695? Is that the Thaw moon?
I don't know off the top of my head, so let's just say sure, so we can keep moving.
We know it wasn't always frozen, so I'm gonna posit the storyline might take place on that same planet before it was frozen, and I'm basing that on what I read of the synopsis of it being sort of alien versus alien focused, but not capital A alien versus alien, right?
I got you.
And the idea that this annual that we just read did tie into a previous comic book series, and we've got the same Declan Shalvey's the same writer for the new annual, and he's writing Thaw. So I'm willing to bet that there's going to be a connection there. Maybe not, but I just want to see a Xenomorph shark again. That's all I'm getting at.
Well, I mean, you're probably not going to, but you might.
And I'm never going to fucking see David again.
Probably not.
They had the perfect opportunity. Put David's brain into one of these synthetics, right? Then you don't have to pay like lightness rights to Michael Fassbender.
All right, so then tell me. Then let's bring out this line. Like, let's bring out this thread of reasoning. How did they get David? Last time we saw him, he was drifting away on a ship.
Yeah, but that was like hundreds of years before this, right? And we know that we saw in, I forget the name of it, but he had sent Wayland Yutani all of the information he had found, all of his research and everything as an olive branch, remember?
Mm-hmm. I do. Now that you mention it, yes, I had forgotten about that before, but yeah.
And that is the kind of thing that could have eventually led them to, the discovering the Xenomorph on 426. I know that they had already picked up the distress beacon or whatever, but like putting all the information together, getting like the solid information from David, because he knew about the distress signal, but that doesn't mean that the company proper did, right? I don't know, man. We haven't gotten our Covenant sequel, and I know that we're not going to, but there could have been some sort of like peace deal. They could have, made an agreement. He might have just sent a copy of his consciousness to them in that care package, potentially. Who knows? There's hundreds of years of story between the two. There maybe not hundreds, but there's like 100 years, right? Between
something
them,
like that, yeah.
This
also
2180, 2193. I don't know what year Covenant took place in.
I don't remember either.
I'm gonna look it up.
But I will say, though, as a brief little aside note, since you mentioned, we're not getting a Covenant sequel, I was reading this thing earlier. Apparently, in an interview that Ridley Scott gave,
2104.
2104. So like
80 years.
Yeah, roughly 80 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
In an interview Ridley Scott gave, he implied, but he did not come right out and say that he was offered the chance to direct Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah.
But at the same time was given the offer to direct Alien Covenant. And the implication that he gave was that they forced him to choose one or the other and would not let him do both.
Wow.
And so he ended up choosing Covenant. And so that's why he didn't end up directing 2049. But like, he's like, he basically went, it should have been me. Cause he's like, I had to choose one or the other. And so I went with Covenant, but really they shouldn't have forced me to make that choice is basically what he said.
And 2049 was pretty fucking good.
I may have gone on record early on in the show because Blade Runner didn't really come up that much here, but I don't want to say I'm not a Blade Runner guy because that implies I actively don't like it. I've never seen it, so I don't have an opinion on it either.
It also implies that there's like a lot of Blade Runner content out there. And they're really, there's more than you'd think, but
there's more than just the movies.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, I've never seen Blade Runner, so I don't really have either of them. So I don't have any strong opinions about the franchise.
I have seen them. I have read Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. It's a very good book. Obviously far different than the movie, right? The movie changes a lot of stuff, but like the inspirations are all still there. Philip K. Dick's a hard author to adapt,
I got you.
You can't really adapt him directly because his shit is wild. I've talked before. I went through a phase where I just read, I think, nothing but Philip K. Dick for months. I read so many of his books, and like it definitely like did something to my brain. But I haven't read Gibson. Sorry, everybody. Anyway, it's fine. I think we're done. This annual's a good time. It's a fun book. I remember the first time I read it being like, damn, this is pretty good. I like this better than Bloodlines also. And going back and reading it now for the second time about a year later, still really fun story, right? Still good.
I agree.
Check it out for yourself.
That's right. Check it out.
Yeah. Sorry we spoiled everything for you. It's still cool to read.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. So
I mean, here's the thing.
Yes.
Everyone going into it about to read it knows that Cruz survives because the title page says it takes place before the events of Bloodlines. So
that's right. Next week, I'm going to put this out tonight. In about probably in an hour from now, give or take.
well, based on the conversation we were having before we started recording, it'll probably be the final issue of Thaw.
Yes.
Next episode.
That'll be the next episode, because next week I don't think there will be an episode because I'm going to be out of town. So August 16th, that's a week from tomorrow at the time of this recording, is when Thaw issue 5 is supposed to drop, which gives us the opportunity to read that for our next episode. After that, we will be jumping into Alien Bloodlines, and we are going to do that as 2 episodes, an episode for the first 3 issues and an episode for the back 3. Then we'll be doing the same thing for Revival as well.
Which, if we didn't mention earlier, is the second arc of the Alien Volume 1 of Marvel's Alien comic.
And who knows? By that point, the new Marvel annual might be out.
Yeah, maybe.
In any case, we're going to cross a shit ton of Marvel comics off the list in the next few episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that it's going to be fun to close the door on Thaw and then jump right into Bloodlines, because we know that Project Alpha and everything was referenced in Thaw, and Thaw takes place 5 or so years before Bloodlines. So chronologically,
5 years,
yeah, we're going to like slide. It actually works out pretty darn well that way. We're going to slide right into a new, right into a comic book series that takes place after Thaw in the same universe.
Presumably, it might take place before. Who knows?
Bits and some before, some after. We'll figure it out. Anyway, yeah, that's what's coming up next. And then, once we're through all of that, probably be time to talk about some Alien Resurrection stuff.
Yeah, we'll get there sooner or later.
Yeah. So, Kenny, where can people find you on the internet if they want to harass us for doing like 5 weeks of Marvel Alien comics in a row?
Well, if you want to harass us for that, you can find me by not harassing us for that.
Yeah, I shouldn't put those ideas. Yeah, you know what? When you want to harass, okay, where can people find you to be nice and not harass you?
I thought you were just gonna put a period there at the end of nice, where you can be nice. Pause, and I'm like, okay. Well, I'm on Twitter. My handle is at CYHOBBEZ. I am also on Blue Sky on the same handle, and you can find me on like the PSN. I use that same handle. That's the same handle I use for everything anywhere that I have an account for online. It is my personal brand that I have been maintaining because, get this, I don't know if I mentioned this on the first episode or not, but I created that username when I signed up for an email address
at AOL.com.
No, at yahoo.com.
Do you still have it?
I do still have it. Not only do I still have it, my Yahoo email account that I created, like I invented this username for, is still my primary email address.
Well, now everybody's going to email you there, dude.
Get this. I got an email. Ironically enough, I got an email from Yahoo because they don't send it to me via notifications. They sent me an email.
Okay.
I got an email from Yahoo July 18th congratulating me because that day was the 23-year anniversary of signing up for that email account.
You may have the longest longest Yahoo email address that's still active. You may be the
that
only
means
one.
just for the listeners out there, since I'm discussing my online handle that I use for everything, what that means is that my online handle, CYHOBBEZ, that I use for everything, was created July 18th, 2000, just
Damn.
for the record.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Happy anniversary. Is it my turn to go?
Yes.
You can find me on Instagram at Final Neal Retro. That's Neal with an A. I'm not really plugging the Twitter or the X anymore because I just don't use it. Little cheat code here for everybody out there. If you want to slide into our social media DMs, slide into the Twitter DMs, you're probably going to get Kenny, right? Mm-hmm. Slide into the Instagram DMs, you're probably going to get me. And by That's probably, true. I mean, I think you're going to be guaranteed to get me because I don't think you even have logged into that account, have you, Kenny?
I do not have. I've literally never used Instagram. So yes, that's correct.
Shout out to Resident Evil Collector who follows us on Instagram.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Love Resident Evil, baby.
I mean, other people follow us there too, but had some nice DMs with them talking about the Alien Resurrection game. Where my Final Neal Retro account, that's a retro gaming collecting account that I have, and we're in each other's orbit over there too. A lot of the same followers, the same group there. So give me the follow back at Final Neal Retro on Instagram. Kenny, where can people find this show on the internet?
Well, as Neal mentioned earlier, you can go to the show's Twitter account, which is, probably I'll be the one to see the notification if you tag us or DM us or something. Mm-hmm. And you can find said Twitter account at Crew Expendapod. You can find the Instagram handle or the Instagram page for the show at the handle at Crew Expendable Pod.
Yeah.
You can go to our website at crewexpendable.net. You can send us an email at mother@crewexpendable.net. And you can go to our YouTube page and follow us and subscribe there. And that is youtube.com/@crewexpendable.
Yes. Follow us there again at the end of August, very close to the 29th. Whether we get enough people together or not, we are absolutely doing a Dead by Daylight stream of the Alien and Ripley content.
Just like I'm sure a whole lot of people also will be.
Yeah, and that will be archived on our YouTube page. If you missed the live, it'll be up there as well. Also, Kenny, I don't know, like we're not putting out an episode next week. There's a chance I might want to do a stream over there once I'm back into town. I haven't talked to you about this at all. We're just going to talk about this on the air here.
Oh, shit. Listeners, whatever it is he's about to say right now is the first I've ever heard it.
It's like the 20-somethingth anniversary of a little game called Aliens versus Predator Extinction. Our friends over at AVP Galaxy, again, not affiliated, have done some nice posts and interviews with developers of the games over there to celebrate the anniversary of AVP Extinction. I just happen to have recently gotten a very, very nice looking Xbox copy of that game. Maybe we're just going to, maybe in the next week or two, we're just going to pop off a fun AVP Extinction live stream over there on our YouTube page.
Making a callback to something that I mentioned earlier on in the episode, since this is an audio medium, you can't see me, but I'm nodding serenely at this information right now.
20th anniversary. It is the 20th anniversary of that game.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
this year.
My email address is older than that game. Got
it. Nice. So yeah, subscribe to us on YouTube. Even if you listen to the audio podcast releases, but subscribe in your podcast app if you listen to those, or if you're on the YouTube page. Let's everyone subscribe to us everywhere you can. We really appreciate it. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods. Follow us on Good Pods. Rate us and review us everywhere. Give us positive reviews, 5-star ratings. Really helps the show out. And slide into our DMs if you don't want to log into your email. That's cool too. You know where to find us. Next episode, we'll be wrapping up Alien Thaw. So until then, stay frosty.